don't try to use words you don't understand. And what I mean is, I
Mm.
see this a lot in online discussions, like a college student or like a high schooler or somebody young.
What's your advice for someone wanting to break into media writing or commentary?
My advice is start now. You probably already
Okay.
have. You kind of already have. I'm very serious. I made the mistake of not writing any of this stuff down when I was in college, not posting it anywhere.
Welcome back to SA Pro Podcast. Today we are talking about how online engagement allows students to shape entertainment culture. And today we are joined by the lovely Melanie Weir. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners at home and let them know what you do?
Yeah, hi folks. My name is Melanie Weir. I am a professional writer and editor. I've done a lot of different kinds of work. I've worked in entertainment journalism. I've done writing for Business Insider. I've written for magazines. I've edited podcast articles. And I edit like people's private books as well. So I'm a gig writer. I'm a gig editor.
Nice. Many talents, many talents. So you say you cover entertainment and internet culture as well, right? The
Yes.
digital, it's kind of like the digital playground for students right now. Do you remember the last time or the first time you realized that people online aren't just reacting to pop culture anymore, but they're kind of shaping it? Like the first time you
Yeah,
realized
I
that?
remember that. I remember that really distinctly, actually. It was right about when I was finishing college because, when I grew up, when I was growing up, the internet was like the Wild West. Like it was kind of the playground that belonged to teenagers and, tweens. You
Yeah.
had your aim.com, you had your Neopets. I came into the internet right after MySpace died, so it was like kind of like
Yeah.
a limbo state. And then when I was in high school, all of a sudden all these YouTube channels, these silly things that people were posting started getting really popular. And then these people turned into professional comedians, and then there was somebody like Bo Burnham happened. But the thing that
Mhm.
actually really made me realize that we were specifically shaping culture, entertainment culture through what we were doing online or what we were saying was that I got an interview fellowship for Mashable. And all of a sudden, I was faced with this career prospect like, oh, I could write about this for a living. This is a job now. And it kind of clicked in my head finally, like, oh, the internet isn't going to be something, or like, oh, our parents were telling us we'd grow out of it, like video games. The internet is going to be ours. We're the people who kind
Mhm.
of built this foundation. And when we're adults, it's going to be, and now look where we are. It is very much part of the landscape, and that's created its own problems. But it,
Mhm.
we were like the pioneers, sort of. So
Yeah.
I didn't realize it would be a big deal until like right after college.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned kind of how like people kind of went on from YouTubers to become professional comedians. But in your opinion, what makes social media so powerful as a space for students to voice their opinions on shows, movies, and everything in between? Like maybe even politics, even. I don't know.
I think it's,
Is it like the speed? Is it the chaos, or something deeper?
I think it's a little bit of everything, like
Mhm.
it is the speed, it is the chaos, the memes, it's all of it. But one other really important factor is that proximity to these people doesn't matter anymore. Like when I was a kid, again, I'm gonna go back in time. Like AIM chat was still around when I was in middle school. It died right around when I went to high school. But it was revolutionary to me when I got it, and then when I got texting, that I could have these conversations with my friends and we didn't have to organize a group hang or like go spend money at a pizza shop or at the mall. We could just talk to each other. That alone was revolutionary when I was younger. And then as I got older, it got really magnified. People started going on websites like Twitter and Tumblr where you can talk to literally anyone at any time about anything. I was a big a Debsy and a netizen of fanfiction.net. That was where I got a chance to connect with people I wouldn't normally have had a chance to connect with. Because, okay, like here's a really good example.
Mhm.
When I was 17, I wrote like a something 25 chapter self-insert fan fiction about Oron High School Host Club, which like you hear that probably as a college high school age person and you cringe that I'm even admitting that. But it's a really good, happy memory for me now. I wrote like a lot. I got several spin-offs and something like 400 people followed me and were like, "Hey, we like this story." And it wasn't like a fan experience. I got to talk to these people. I got to talk to them on other platforms. We got to talk about like the shows we liked. It wasn't just Auron we had in common. I made friends that way, and none of that ever would have happened if I hadn't just said, "You know what? Let's just post this silly thing online." And now kids, I mean, that was new to me. They grow up with it. They're used to the idea. So I don't even know what that's like, the connections you can make now.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience. Like I used to play PlayStation a lot, and I'd play video games with random people around the world. And then like I met up with this guy, and now we're still friends. Like 10 years later, it's kind of crazy how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, the guy I just
Yeah,
started dating, he has like a group of World of Warcraft friends that he has from God knows how long, but he's going to one of their weddings later this year. Like
damn,
you could, it's actually a
the
really
world's
easy
crazy.
way to make friends. I feel like you're less afraid of judgment because you go in knowing that this person, these people already like what you're talking about. The one friend I had who
Yeah.
liked Oron when I was in high school, like moved away. I probably would have stopped talking about that thing, period, if it hadn't been for, and
Hmm.
that show came out in like 2006. They have flip
Dang.
phones in that show. The only reason we still know what it is, because it only had one season, the only reason anyone still knows what it is because of internet culture. So that's like, there you go.
Yeah.
That's like some kind of a 20-year legacy because of that. You can make
Hmm.
the things you like permanent.
Yeah, literally. Um, Speaking of like generations and like older stuff, not older stuff, but like 2006 throwback. I was 6 years old. But you've probably seen how like Gen Z communicates online. Do you think that the way that they talk about media is totally different from older generations like millennials, Gen X and stuff? Or is it
I mean,
just
I
more
should
like
qualify
meme
this.
savvy?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, for sure. I should qualify this by saying, like, I'm practically Gen Z myself. I was born in
Okay.
1995. I turned 30 this year. But
Hmm.
like nobody really knows where to place the 95, 96 babies. My older
Yeah.
sister's a millennial and I copied her music taste, but like my younger siblings are Gen Z. Most of my friends from college are Gen Z. So I guess I'm like bilingual in that sense. But to answer
Hmm.
your question, I think it's definitely more meme savvy. Specifically, they have like this foundation of memes that like kind of the original netizens, like people my age, older than me mostly, but they kind of created this basic vocabulary of memes. And to us, they were punchlines, but now they've kind of evolved and we started treating them like hieroglyphics almost. Like, for example, there's this
Literally.
one specific image of Ted Danson from The Good Place, where he's saying,
Yeah.
yeah, the time knife, we've all seen it. At this point, you can post that image without the caption, and everyone will know, most people will know, that you're basically saying, yes, this thing you're describing is strange and mind-bending and messed up, but unfortunately, we have all seen, acknowledged, and moved past this horror already. That
Hmm.
is a thought you can express in a single image. When you start being able to communicate like that, like it makes sense that the jokes and the humor and the associations and discussions that evolve move more quickly and become more expressive. And like that can be an advantage for a lot of reasons. Like, that's part of why the conversations are moving so quickly these days. But there is a caveat is that outsiders definitely find it difficult to understand. Like I can't show
Yeah.
any of these conversations to any of my family members much older than my older sister. They won't get it. And
Yeah.
also it requires a lot of interpretation, which means that misinterpretation is common. And if you're not as well versed on how to verbally express your ideas and opinions, which some people aren't, especially if you're still going through like you just came out of high school, you haven't gotten much practice like writing essays and stuff. If you don't have a lot of practice
Hmm.
verbally with that, it can lead to a lot of miscommunications and infighting. Reading
Hmm.
comprehension can be a big problem. So, it's a give and take, but it is cool for a lot of reasons.
Literally, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of memes out there my parents wouldn't get. Like the
Oh,
I
yeah.
know a couple, but I'm not gonna go into them. I can go on forever about the memes I know, but yeah. From your point of view, how are students actually influencing trends just by reacting, posting, stitching, duetting, or quote tweeting things into oblivion?
I mean, like
Is that kind of like algorithmic building up of trends, or
the the answer is kind of in the question, honestly. Like quote tweeting
yeah,
things into oblivion, like is it's itself a thing, but like it's the same answer as the last question. It's the speed it can happen at.
yeah,
Specifically, like in this instance, like students have so much more time to devote to the stuff than adults with like full-time jobs and pets and children and what have you. Like they also have a lot more energy for the same reasons, and also just because I mean, as I realize now, as my body begins to age, that it is true what they say about the energy of youth. Kids don't take it for granted. One day you are going to
literally.
hit the age of like 25 or 26, and all of a sudden your hangovers will be twice as
Oh,
bad as you remember them being. I'm
yeah,
warning you,
dude.
it'll happen.
I just I just turned 25. I'm kind of feeling it. My prefrontal cortex, it's
Yeah.
developed over the
My little
summer.
brother, you're actually the exact same age as my younger brother, and he all of a sudden
Really?
discovered he couldn't just drink coffee and eat Sour Patch Kids all day because he got an ulcer.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Uh-oh. No, no, no.
he's okay
That's
now.
terrible.
But
Okay,
yeah,
good.
anyway,
Oh
but
God. Okay.
that energy that they have, it can translate into like you abusing your body and eating Sour Patch Kids and drinking coffee all the time. But what it also translates into in this instance is a lot of passion. And passion is what
Hmm.
drives fandom more than anything else. And even more importantly, like, it's a language that television producers speak. They look
Hmm.
for it, they understand it, they know that the more passionate people are about a show or a movie or a game, the more money they can stand to make off of it. And also the more free advertising they get. So, like, kids and students aren't just influencing what trends, they're influencing what we end up getting more of. They say you vote with your dollar,
Hmm.
but this is an attention economy now, kind of. And in an attention economy, you do vote with your voice, you vote with your time, your passion,
Literally.
your attention, your creativity, even like what you're making fan stuff of. So for kids, especially kids who don't really have jobs yet or are saving up for the future, young adults too, that kind of influence is huge. And like you all audience have the advantage in that area.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, along the same lines of that, we know that like TikTok and Reddit and X, these are kind of like the main trend starting apps at the moment. And I know this is kind of like a debated topic, but do you think that the students or people who are on these apps are what is driving what rises and flops on these platforms, or do you think that the algorithm itself is kind of steering these ideas and messages to the general public?
I think that depends largely on what platform you're talking about. Because some are
Yeah.
definitely more moderated than others, and their algorithms or lack thereof work entirely differently. Um, if I were to make like an overarching statement, I'd say the people on the platforms are definitely driving what's trending, but the
Hmm.
platform and the overall culture contained within the platform is driving like the how and the why. Like X is
Hmm.
mainly for discussions, and it's really not as moderated anymore. No matter what they say, it's just discussions can get more aggressive than other places before being shut down, and that leads to an outside number of the discussions that you see that trend being conflicts or rifts or discussions in the fandom that nobody can agree upon. Like
Hmm.
TikTok, like on the other side of the scale, it has a lot more diversity in what trends, but it's also really heavily moderated. So as a result,
Hmm.
trends are more positive and informative and fun and silly. And there's also a lot more like, copy this and reactions and
Hmm.
little bits. And the way you can use sound clips encourages a lot of reenacting, and it also encourages like people to spread moments or bits from a show that are really funny. That can
Hmm.
actually hook a lot of people who might not otherwise have given a show a shot. So TikTok gives shows a
Hmm.
lot of new exposure, but you don't have usually as much of the conflict or in-depth discussion on what people disagree with. It's usually pretty surface level. I say usually,
Yeah.
not always, because there is really the issue with TikTok is you have no way to know or look for what you're going to find. It is just presented to you. So that's really
Yeah.
random. But
And
Reddit is also
it
more
kind of,
discussion based, and because it's moderated
yeah.
by both individual moderators and the people with a voting system in the replies, you end up seeing the stuff that
Hmm.
most people agree with first, and like the arguments tend to be either deleted or moved to the bottom. So if you're on
Yeah.
Reddit, whatever floats to the top is something that most people agree with. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think actually an important lesson to learn with this, and it was not fun for me to have to learn this as an adult with nobody to give me advice about it because it was kind of brand new. The platforms you spend your time on really do influence your perspective and your general outlook on life. Like if you spend a lot of time on Twitter, chances are you're going to find yourself a lot more angry a lot more of the time.
Exactly.
I actually got to a point where I had to I moved it to another page and I decided to only open it when I knew something was happening because literally every time I logged on by 5 minutes into scrolling, I was angry about something that I wasn't thinking about before. But it
Hmm.
does move fast and there's a lot of people on it. You have to, you can, I'm telling this to college students because I think it's important. You can curate your own media experience. Try to stick to the people you followed on purpose. And if you see something inflammatory on purpose, like give yourself 5 seconds before you interact with it. Like I know I sound like every single adult who has ever given you advice ever, but we're saying it because we don't want you to make our mistakes. It was miserable pulling myself out of that.
Literally, yeah. There's so much triggering stuff on Twitter, especially, and like on everything. I feel like you kind of just touched on this a little bit, but do you remember any specific moments when maybe a student-led online community really made a wave in like saving a TV show, boosting a movie, or pushing something into the mainstream? Anything
Yeah,
along those lines?
absolutely. Both like before I
Hmm.
was working and when I was working, we've seen a ton of shows that fans have saved, like even in my lifetime, because fans saved Community when I was in, I
Hmm.
think, high school, because its original channel would have been NBC. NBC dropped it. And it got picked up by, I think, Yahoo for another season, and then I think another channel picked it up for another season after that or something. And the same thing happened with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It came to an end. Fox dropped it, and NBC picked it up, and that was because they had passionate fan followings, and like the networks wanted those. They were driven to pick them up and keep them going because they knew the people behind it were so upset that it ended, and if they could just
Hmm.
find a way to start it again, those loyal fans would be theirs, and networks love loyal fans. But you know what? Actually,
Dude.
probably the biggest example of this in my memory, and I remember this specifically because one of my best friends in college, Taji, is the one, like the world's biggest Sonic fan. Um,
Hmm.
the Sonic the Hedgehog thing when they released the original designs, and everybody was confused and horrified at the creature from the
I
Uncanny
remember.
Valley that they revealed.
Yeah.
They
I remember that.
okay. Fans expressed their dissatisfaction very loudly and very everywhere. And within 2 days, the studio decided on a full redesign. Two
I remember
days.
that. It's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, there was also like
What?
stuff that like when I was working at Inside the Magic, that Disney Plus took the Howard Ashman documentary down, and that's for those of you who don't know, Howard Ashman is my hero. He saved Little Mermaid, he saved the Beauty and the Beast, he wrote Aladdin, but he died before Beauty and the Beast came out of AIDS. He was very famously a gay man. I know. Dude, the Disney landscape would look so different if he had lived today. He didn't even get to work on Aladdin, but he wrote that script. I could
Mhm.
go on forever about Howard Ashman. Don't get me started. But when they took that down, there was an immediate outcry across social media, especially because it was the beginning of Pride Month. Within the
Yeah,
same day, it was put back on the platform. Something like that would have
good.
taken at least a week 10 years ago.
Yeah. I really wish the internet was around when Freaks and Geeks was out because I love that show. It's a classic. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Freaks and Geeks would have gone viral on the internet. That was
It
that
would
was
have.
Greg Daniels, right? The
I
internet
actually
loves
have
Greg
no
Daniels
idea.
shows.
Yeah, literally. Speaking of like authentic stuff, you know, you talk a lot about voice and authenticity in your work, and you're so good at helping writers kind of sound like themselves. What would you say to students trying to jump into media conversations without sounding performative or like they're trying too hard?
Okay. First of all, this is going to sound kind of condescending, but I will explain what I mean. Don't try to use words you don't understand. And what I mean is, I
Mm,
see this a lot in online discussions, like a college student or like a high schooler or somebody young, very clearly young, will jump into a conversation and try to use a term that suddenly gained a lot of pop culture saturation, like gaslighting or derivative or something. And it's very clear to everyone else in the discussion that they learned the definition of this word using context clues, but never actually looked it up because they're not quite using it right. I'm saying
hmm.
this to say don't avoid using new words. Just as a rule of thumb, and this has actually taught me a lot of vocabulary words, if you feel like you want to use a word that you've seen a lot, but you've never seen the definition, before you use it, just look it up. Just make sure it's what you actually mean. Because terms
Yeah.
like that get overused and then they become useless and it's a brouhaha. It's a kerfuffle. Um,
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
importantly, honestly, though, if you want to be taken seriously in those spaces, you have to apply the same principles you learn in a high school English class to enter these discussions. You have to support your statements with evidence from the story. You have to engage with opposing views politely, even if they make you mad. And show sources where applicable. Like, for example, if you're discussing something in a historical setting and you want to point out an anachronism, like a detail out of time that shouldn't have been there,
Hmm.
that modern audiences might not consider as important as they should, like you can just say what you know, but providing an
Hmm.
article or a website that backs up what you're saying, it both makes you more credible and it gives people who want to learn more an easy inroad. It would
Yeah.
also serve you well to learn the basic rules of debate and what the most common logical fallacies are, because learning to point out things like straw men and ad hominem attacks will make sure the conversations you have remain on topic and don't devolve into something more unpleasant. It also
Yeah.
feels awesome to shut bad faith arguments down that way because you can win an argument coming out looking like the more calmer and more collected person every time, the calmer, more collected person every time. Because a well-crafted insult is fun, but like a well-crafted argument is way more satisfying. And then other people can't point fingers at you and being like, "Well, you're just being mean." Like you're untouchable if
Yeah.
you just stick to the topic and if you know how to debate.
Okay.
Oh, and you
So
know what? One
to
more thing.
take back to
If
debate
you're
school.
talking about an experience you haven't had yet, and adults are saying like that this isn't how it goes, just listen to the adults. I see a lot of kids
Mhm.
asserting like something like, "Oh, I know exactly how this tough adult situation should have been handled in the story," and like refusing to listen when older people explain like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, that's never how life works out, and that's why this story
Mhm.
exists." Like you could be missing the
Exactly.
point. A good litmus test is when you're a kid, you probably like before you like really fall in love for the first time or whatever, you probably read Romeo and Juliet and think the characters are
Hmm.
being really stupid. Like, what is this for? What the prejudice and discrimination is very abstract to you. The litmus test is, are you experienced enough in life to understand that Romeo and Juliet was never really about the characters, but about the feud that killed them? If
Hmm.
you couldn't come to that conclusion on your own yet, just take a step back and like maybe read more than you participate, because that is how eventually you'll learn. This is why
Hmm.
humans even like tell each other stories in the first place. It's because this discussion and this is like the discussion of it living, it's sort of teaching through example. It's just you don't have to come
Yeah,
up with a specific example from your own life. Um,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
If there's
that
something
makes
in a
a lot of
story you
sense.
don't get, it's probably trying to teach it to you.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of stuff you kind of over, like you don't analyze enough, but if you sat down with a little bit, you kind of understand it a bit. I get that.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of like kind of going back to what we talked about earlier about kind of online culture, do you think that creators and studios are watching what students say online? I mean, we kind of went into that like with the Sonic stuff, but how much do you think that they actually care or pretend to care about online feedback?
Oh, I know they're watching and I know they care. I was an
Hmm.
entertainment journalist for like dedicated, that was my only job for roughly 5 years. And in
Hmm.
that time, I can tell you that producers and studio heads have dedicated people whose job, like they probably have other tasks, but it is their job to watch social media feeds for their intellectual property all the time. Social media
Hmm.
commentary on a release actually serves as the earliest general public reviews. Creators used to get to hear what critics had to say right away because they'd send us like
Hmm.
advanced copies. But they never used to get the raw, unfiltered opinions of the general public this quickly and this directly. The day a new show came out
Hmm.
when I was an editor, I knew first thing in the morning what I had to do was look for well-written Twitter commentary to quote in my article about the release, because that's what people were looking for. In many ways,
Hmm.
these comments actually have more power over public opinion than full reviews. Like right now, they're shorter and people are more likely to read them because they're on very accessible social media as opposed to a link that's probably behind a paywall. It's less things to click. People are going to see them faster. And the suits at the network are actually relying on that social media hype to do a lot of their advertising for them. They're looking at it as a
Hmm.
factor of what to renew for another season, what to make a sequel of. Even the ones who take the most hands-off approach will still want their stuff to trend. They might just not care exactly why. Video game devs,
Hmm.
especially, really rely on social media after a big release, not just to find out what people like so they can do better advertising, but so that they can issue patches and bug fixes and like fix glitches as quickly as possible. Every time The Sims does an
Hmm.
update, even now, within 2 days, they issue a big update of patches because they've seen commentary online about what's going wrong for people. It happens way
Hmm.
faster. The Cats movie,
That's great.
it's not, sorry, what was that?
No, I said that's great. Yeah, video
Yeah, it
games. I used to play
is.
GTA a lot. Big GTA
Yes.
player.
Yes, that's another really big one. The Patch
Hmm.
movie, the Pats thing isn't even like limited. Let me slow down. The
No,
Cats
you're
movie
good. You're good.
was also patched. The patch thing is not limited to video games anymore. Um, the movie came out and people started noticing that there was unfinished CGI in some of the shots. They had to send out
What?
a new reel
Uh-uh.
within like 2 days of the release because you could just see people's hands. You actually, I think in the version I saw wasn't the second release, and Meryl Streep's paws were still hands at the end. But they had to do a
That's
lot of
crazy.
stuff with that because they saw the online backlash and they were like, okay, all right, okay, nobody's gonna see this movie. Let's say we fix some stuff and see if that helps.
Yeah,
You know, the
yeah.
Sonic thing is another example. Barbenheimer is another example.
Hmm.
There's a lot of
Literally,
examples.
literally. I mean, that kind of goes into this next question. It's kind of like, what's your take on the rise of stan culture? I mean, Barbenheimer. Like, is this powerful supportive force with young fans, or does it have like the potential to kind of like cross the line and take chaotic energy? And is
It's
there a
both.
balance that could be found with that?
Yeah, it's definitely about balance. Like stan culture can actually be a very powerful thing. A
Hmm.
really good example, the Hollywood strikes that happened a couple summers ago. Um, a
Exactly.
lot of stars could communicate, like stars with stans could communicate the treatment they were getting directly to people who really, really cared, and that made a real impact on the lives of actual people, not just the people that were being stanned, but the other actors that they were trying to help. Actors, some of my friends with SAG cards who get like 2 roles a year and really need health insurance were also helped by that.
Yeah.
Um,
Me
what
too.
happened, like But that strike, like studio heads were trying to take old tactics because I think the last time that there was a big strike was like the 50s. And one of the things they did was they decided to release incendiary commentary to the press and say, like, oh, studio heads are talking about, oh, well, I just have to keep this going until they lose their houses. And in the
Mhm.
past, that tactic had worked because it freaked people out. And they didn't have as a way to communicate as quickly with each other. And it quieted things down a little bit. Like I don't think it fully ended things, but it definitely was a blow. It did not work this time because those statements were leaked to the press, and as soon as they were up and online, every single stand, and honestly, just decent people also were commenting on how heinous that was and what a horrible thing that was to say. They were not prepared for social media standing the corporate suits or what have you. They really did not expect the general public to care as much as they did, but they did. I Yeah, if you spoke during the Hollywood strikes, if you said anything, you helped end them and you helped a lot of people get health insurance and guarantee they wouldn't be replaced by AI versions of themselves. So good on you.
Yeah, literally. Kind of in the same vein, how can students create healthy and constructive conversations in fan communities rather than toxic ones, in your
Um,
opinion?
this kind of goes hand in hand with what I said about jumping into conversations without being performative. It's important that you learn the
Mhm.
base etiquette of debate. Always use support. Don't insult people. Don't debase yourself to ad hominem attacks, like meaning don't insult people and like don't look through their profile for other things to talk about them. Like that's not cool. That's not a cool thing to do. Um,
Mhm.
Keep discussions polite and keep it centered on the media you're discussing, not the person you're discussing it with. Also, if you
Mhm.
if you feel like you just kind of start to pufferfish like a lot when you're having these discussions, like if you get really mad in a way you start like figuratively seeing red. I hate the phrase touch grass as a derivative because it's really just good advice. Just
Yeah.
unpuff, walk away for a little bit, go outside and lay in the grass, call your mom, take a walk, observe a bird. Just do something that reminds you that you are a real person in the real world and you have no imperative connection to the thing you are standing and no reason to continue the conversation if you don't think it's productive. Then, if you still feel like
Mhm.
talking, you can go back and you'll probably be able to say what you're thinking a lot more clearly. I just
Mhm.
don't let the thing you're standing or the thing you're having a conversation about become more important to you than it is to the people who created it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
that cartoon guy
Yeah,
that you're like going ham about, that you're about to have an aneurysm over, a group of people made him and they do not care as much about this response as you do. So be zen.
exactly.
Um,
Protect your peace. Protect your peace.
yes. And just
Yeah.
don't engage with bad faith arguments. And if you learn
Mhm.
the basic tenets of debate, you actually will have a really easy it'll be much easier for you to sniff out bad faith and pointless arguments from others and just shut them down instead of getting sucked in. Just
Mhm.
in general, pay attention in your English classes because, and if you're not doing English classes anymore, maybe like talk to your friends who do or join a book club or something because the, what you're learning in those classes, what you're learning in those groups is not actually how to analyze something, it's how to argue, and it's how to argue well.
Yeah.
Um, and if you learn how to do that, you will always come out of a verbal dispute clean and feeling good about yourself, not feeling like you just went through a battle and you might have slashed some guy by accident.
Literally. So Melanie, in the vein of writing, you write fiction. You build entire fictional families in The Sims. You live for storytelling. How do these creative hobbies sort of shape how you interact with entertainment? And do you think that students should lean into that side more?
Okay, first of all, I should take a moment to talk about The Sims because if you are a
Mhm.
writer, it's a fantastic character engine. Like I play with it like it's a dollhouse a lot, but if I put myself and
Nice.
my friends in and set our personality traits carefully and just set them free, we act like the people we're modeled after. Like a scary amount. You can do the same thing with your characters. If you want to know how stoic the Vast would behave in a modern domestic setting, you throw them in The Sims and you can find out. If you want to get a taste of how your own
Mhm.
characters might interact with one another, you can make them and put them in a house together and just see what happens. You can get ideas in no time that way. It's also great for modeling rooms and sets. You can, if you can't
Yeah.
visualize buildings very easily. My mom actually recently asked me to make a model of our house so that she could like try out
Nice.
design ideas, and she's obsessed with it now. I just
Mhm.
storytelling is an art, right? Like most arts. And even if you're really good at it, you need to practice, not to get better, but to gain like a deeper and fuller understanding of the nature of story. I
Mhm.
actually really recently had a personal revelation about this. I was reevaluating my life and looking back at like what I've done so far. And I kind of realized that all of my hobbies, my obsession with entertainment and writing and RPGs, like even going back to the dollhouses I'd play with as a kid and The Sims now,
Mhm.
um, the one thing they have in common is that they are in service of a lifelong quest to better understand people. Um, and that's the long and short of it. We write and we tell stories and we argue and we write essays because we want to understand each other better. We want to understand people better. Even those Twitter arguments where everybody's getting loud and angry, they're angry because they don't understand each other and they want to.
Yeah.
And consuming the art helps you better understand people a little, but the act of creating it helps you get there a lot faster. And the more you practice different types of writing or storytelling or communicating, even if you are just arguing with people online, the more bridges you'll be able to build to connect with other people. Like if you want to get scientific about it, you're making grooves,
Mhm.
you're making connections in your own brain. You're creating pathways between different parts that didn't work together before. So it not only makes you smarter, it makes you a better communicator and probably a better person in general. And if you look at your hobbies,
Yeah.
there's probably more things that you're doing that are in service of story than you realize. And if you don't watch and play entirely mindlessly, like if you are mentally participating in what you're watching, what you're playing, what you're consuming, you are going to get something out of it. If you're always critically, and here's something I learned as an entertainment journalist, also to make myself feel less guilty about wanting to watch TV all the time because I do. Um,
Mhm.
if you watch actively, not just for the enjoyment, but to analyze how it's made, you can learn a lot. Watch
Yeah.
something and look for how the writers put the story together, how the character arcs track over time, what makes it so enjoyable to watch. You can watch making of
Mhm.
podcasts or read books where they'll tell you about like things that happen behind the scenes. That's how I can watch
Yeah.
like the show The Office. I'm one of those people who never turns off The Office. But
Yeah.
I can
I love
watch it
that.
so many times, it's the best. I can
It's the
watch it so
best.
many times because I still get something out of it every time. There's so many stories there. It's not just the ones on the screens. There are so many ones behind the scenes. Like you find out very early on if you listen to the Office Ladies podcast that the reason Pam and Angela don't have that many scenes together for that long is because in real life they're best friends. And when you put them in scenes together where they had to hate each other, they eventually just started giggling and couldn't stop. So that's like
Literally.
all of a sudden the next time you watch the show you're going to know that and you're going to notice like points where Angela almost breaks when she and Pam are arguing and it's fun. You know
Mhm.
what, even reality TV has an
Yeah.
art to it. The way that the editors put
Mhm.
those shows together, they choose how the story gets told. Like watch Real Housewives or Vanderpump Rules and watch how the people
Yeah.
put together the flashbacks, watch the shots they decide to add to highlight memories, watch the faces people are making that they highlight. The camera person and the editor are
Mhm.
probably not storytellers most people think about when they watch shows like that, but they decide how it gets told. They're very important. Um, and the more you
Mhm.
watch stuff like that, the
Especially
more
with
you're
like
going to
in
realize.
film and stuff too.
Sorry, say again?
Yeah, I work in film as well, and like the editor's job is so important. Like that's
So
like the
important.
third running of the story. The script and the directing, and then finally the editing, and like that's the last play on it. I mean, even the
Yeah.
sound design at the end of the day tells its own story. You
It,
know,
yeah,
it's
it
all
all
kind of coming
does.
together.
It,
It's crazy.
the more you
Yeah,
notice the little
yeah.
things, and it's like when you're younger, it's kind of like, oh, you make a joke out of, oh, the lighting and oh, the sound, but the more you notice the difference it can make in the things that you're watching, the more you truly learn to appreciate it. And you know what? Here's how I recently created a blog so that when I had something to say about that, I could just say it instead of, having to wait for a platform that would want to post it or an editor that would go
Literally.
over it. You students can also do that. You can just make a card website or a Wix website for free. And when you watch TV or you notice something in a game you're playing or something, write it down, write down a few notes.
Yeah.
It might turn into an essay faster than you realize. And then also, if you're like home for the summer and your parents are like, you're not doing anything productive, you can be like, wrong, I'm doing research for my portfolio and it won't even be a lie.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just covered my next question, but one more thing. It's like, let's say students love pop culture. They write threads, reviews, maybe even fanfics, but they don't know how to start professionally. What's your advice for someone wanting to break into media writing or commentary?
Oh, okay. My advice is very God, what's his name? Shia LaBeouf. It's
Yeah,
just do it. You kind of already are.
nice.
If you are somebody
Yeah.
who writes and participates in storytelling or in entertainment in any way online, you are already doing it. My advice is start now. You probably already
Okay.
have. You kind of already have. I'm very serious. I made the mistake of not writing any of this stuff down when I was in college, not posting it anywhere, kind of thinking fanfic.net was the only place I had a right to be without my degree. I was very wrong. Because okay, when I was an editor at Valnet, the site that owns like Screen Rant and all those other sites, I worked with people who were fresh out of high school or in the middle of college who were better writers than some of the full adults on my team. I ran like the weekend news team. Um,
Hmm.
and I had two high schoolers that were fresh out of high schoolers who worked with me who were in the middle of getting writing degrees in college. And their articles were usually the grammar was usually pretty good. They were well thought out. They got a lot of hits, and I didn't have to do much to them.
Hmm.
You your age is not as big a factor on how good a writer you can be as you think it is. It really is more about
Hmm.
practice. Um, just write down your thoughts and feelings somewhere. You can submit to
Yeah.
Medium, you can submit to Substack, you can make your own social media account for that purpose. You can make a website like I did. Just put it somewhere. Don't wait for an outlet to pick you up in
Hmm.
order to feel like your voice is allowed to be heard because you will regret it in the long run. I wish I had a portfolio of more of the stuff that I was thinking about writing but couldn't write under the outlet I was on when I was younger. It would
Hmm.
have propelled me forward so much faster. The faster you can build a portfolio of just stuff you've written, the better. And even stuff
Yeah.
like fanfic can help you get a job. You would be shocked. The employer isn't going to read that you got a fanfic on AO3 with AO3 with like 500 kudos and 20 chapters and say, "Wow, what a nerd." They're going to think like, "Wow,
Hmm.
500 people think this person is a good writer and they had the dedication to make and post that whole story with nobody hounding them to do it." Sounds like a really
Exactly.
responsible person. Sounds like a good hire. So just practice,
Yeah.
just do it. When you feel a creative impulse, don't hesitate. That's what'll kill you. The hesitation will
Hmm.
kill you. Don't think like I'm too tired or
Yeah.
I'll write it down. Just write something down. And once you start, it'll be way easier.
You got to Shia LaBeouf it.
You
Kind of
really
just
do. My roommates and I
circling
used
back a
to
little
use
bit.
that video
Yeah.
as motivation.
Yeah, literally, it's a great video. Um, with the rise of AI generated content and all that kind of stuff going on, what does it mean for students who want to write about entertainment to do it in their own voice? Is originality becoming more valuable, in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely yes. Okay,
Hmm.
I've been saying since 2022 or 2023, whatever year it was when National Geographic laid off its last staff writer, I saw the writing on the wall and I said it. Suits in charge of writing companies now, especially web companies, are trying to replace as much of their workforce as possible with AI, especially writers. And it's working right now because in the short term, it's cheaper and you can put out more stuff. The problem
Hmm.
is when nearly every single outlet without an already established name starts doing that, along with some of the established ones, all of the writing is going to start to sound the same because it's all pulling from like mostly the same pool. They're creating an echo chamber of homogenous content that eventually audiences are going to get really bored of. And then one day, like I'll give you like 2 or 3 more years, maybe longer, depending on how AI and LLMs and the laws around them develop. Some hotshot with a
Yeah.
lot of money is going to notice the problem and either start a publication or buy an existing one that, or just join one that does have original writing, hire a bunch of writers, and that will be their thing that all of our writers are real and it will be
Hmm.
wildly popular just because the writing is different. And then most of the other suits will realize their mistake and they'll be forced to hire writers again, and it'll be different, but it'll be better. But when that happens, if you, college students, have kept up with the habit of writing like yourself and writing in general, you're going to be at a huge advantage over the people who've been letting their skills atrophy in favor of the robot. It's like most
Literally.
other human skills, it's a muscle, unfortunately, and if you don't use it, you will lose it. Even beyond that, though, there is
Yeah.
so much inherent value in having the skills and knowledge to be able to express yourself exactly the way you want to. I,
Hmm.
like I said, like now, arguing now has become a large part of the culture on many platforms. And if you want to be good at arguing, if that's a goal you have, reading and writing make you better. Always. The more you write, the easier
Hmm.
all of this stuff becomes.
Yeah. Never outsource your creativity to a robot.
It's like
That's what
grinding
I
in a
live
video
by.
game, dude. You have to do it for a reason.
Exactly, exactly. Um, if students had to write a pop culture essay tomorrow, what show or movie do you wish more people were writing about right now? I know you're pretty educated in this stuff. You love a lot, I know.
I have a
The
definitive
TV
answer to
shows?
this. Yes, it's Poker
Okay.
Face. It's a show on Peacock right now
Poker
starring
Face.
Natasha Lyonne. It's one of the
I've
best
heard of it.
shows I've
Yeah.
seen ever.
Okay.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it,
Why?
it's like Columbo. They tell the story like Columbo. So if you're not familiar, that the idea with Columbo was that it was a detective story, but they showed you the whole crime at the beginning. You knew who was going to
Mm-hmm.
die. You knew who the killer was. It was kind of like a dramatic irony thing,
Mm-hmm.
as Natasha Lyonne figures it out. And her character, Charlie, her thing is she can always tell when someone is lying. So that's it.
Ooh.
You walk in and you know the crime, you know the murderer, you know who lied, you know who died, and Charlie knows who's lying. So you get to watch her figure it out kind of like backwards. It's really cool, and the acting is incredible. The characters are endearing and engaging. The dialogue is witty and funny. The stories have amazing twists. Like, I'm a person who, when I'm watching TV, I can usually tell you what's going to happen next. Never see it coming. And it's always good. It's not like Game of Thrones where it came out of left field. It always makes sense when you go back. You have to watch these episodes twice most of the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the second season of this came out at the beginning of the summer. I think everybody should watch the whole thing. But if you want to just watch to sample it, pick episode 5 or 6 of the first season. They're both really good. They don't have much spoilers. They have really clever writing. Um, and it's a masterclass in creative writing. You will
Mm-hmm.
see what I mean when you watch the way they drop breadcrumbs, the way they set up characters, the way they set up moments. It's If you watch that show, you will learn a lot about storytelling.
Okay. Yeah, the way you said it, like how they set up the crime at the beginning, kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Black White Lotus. Yeah, White Lotus. You
Yeah,
seen White
kind of.
Lotus?
I haven't watched a
Yeah,
lot of White Lotus, but I saw the first couple
yeah.
episodes. It's a little, yeah, a little bit like that.
Every season starts it off with like somebody died, and you're kind of like getting to figure out how this person died or who was it towards the end.
Yes,
It's pretty
yeah,
sick.
it's a lot like that.
Yeah.
It's just that it's in it instead of every season, it's the beginning of every episode with this one. It's actually
Okay.
really interesting.
Okay.
There are some episodes where you won't even see Natasha Lyonne until like the 20-minute mark.
Shit. Oh,
They've
right.
also got
Right.
amazing guest stars. If you like John Mulaney, one of the funniest roles I've ever seen him in is the third episode of the second season. He's just drinking milk
Oh.
the entire time. Watch the episode. It's so funny.
He's thirsty.
He has an
Nice.
ulcer.
Um, he too has an ulcer.
He too has an
You
ulcer.
said he has an. Oh my goodness! All that coffee and sugary snacks. Okay, okay, Melanie. Finish finish this sentence, okay?
Okay.
The future of entertainment culture belongs to the people who.
Who learn to understand it today. And I think that's kind of a
Mhm.
summary of everything I've been saying. You learn to understand, and the culture belongs to you. And
Mhm.
the way you learn to understand is just participating. It's
Mhm.
I would say to those who talk about it now, but in truth, the only real way to have those productive discussions around entertainment is to learn how those discussions are facilitated, which means actively participating and practicing your writing and actively watching shows, all the things I was describing. So just
Mhm.
immerse yourself, pay attention.
Mhm.
Don't watch mindlessly, watch actively. Take notes.
Mhm.
Act like the show you're watching is a book you're reading for class, and you'll be surprised
Mhm.
how quickly that stops feeling like a chore.
No, that's great. I think more people need to start thinking deeply about the entertainment they consume rather than just
Yeah.
using it to numb their stuff. Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much, Melanie.
Yeah.
And for our listeners out there, remember to use the code 20thread for 20% off your first order with SA Pro. And on that note, we're done. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.